Welcome to my podcast, World in Existentialism, where we discuss everything nihilism, creating oneself, and meaning. This is my very first podcast, and I'm excited to host my collaborator and partner, Simone de Beauvoir. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me. I'm a French writer on feminist philosophy, and you probably know me from The Second Sex or The Woman Destroyed.
Tell us about your book, The Second Sex, and what you discussed because you brought up some truly innovative ideas.
Thank you so much. So to start, the idea of diurnal feminine has been treated as the standard of feminist philosophy. The idea that femininity is tied to an essence of which all women possess. The problem with this is that it assumes that femininity has remained the same throughout time. This is
To give a little bit of background on ourselves, I wrote a novel, Existentialism is a Humanism, explaining my views on existentialism. Existence precedes essence. We must exist and secondly create our purpose. We have free will to make choices that influence our future. This means we must own up to our actions and decide our own morals.
Right, exactly. The problem with the eternal feminine is that it seems that women don't have free will. That we force it down femininity instead of choosing to. I want to assert that we do have choice in adapting to gender. This is not to say that we don't need to meet programs or gender equality in the systemics.
Most people read your work as social constructivist. Why do you think that is?
In the second sex, I mentioned the one isn't born, but rather becomes a woman. And combined with the eternal feminine theory, people assume that when I say one becomes woman, they become it because of social constructs. If a girl's raised around dressing up in skirts, having dolls, split into literature classes to sense them classes, they start to think of themselves as lesser. But can this only be worked by the woman?
Are you saying that women are the perpetrators of their own construct? Sorry, hold on. Are you saying that women are the perpetrators of their own constructs and social norms?
No, all I'm saying is that they're not innocent figures and they're participants.
How so?
In adolescent development, the power dynamic between boys and girls. I use the boy learning how to communicate, for example. When a boy is able to stand up when he is from his father to sign of power, he won't just accept it as the truth. But instead, he is reinforced by the women around him to take it as a kind of done. And from that, they submit to his action. So the boys learn to trust this as a sign of power. In my book, I use the quote, he does not experience life like spontaneously in his little indolent secularism, but he feels it through the attitude of those around him. Mother and white nurses perpetuate the tradition that balances and whether they recognize it in its speech and recognize its pursuit in amorous gratitude or submission. And it's a game with them by seeing it in the baby and reduce form. You create the child and their
So you believe that girls are choosing to reinforce these ideas?
somewhat. Continuing from my previous example, girls don't have to take the bonus against the whole power, but instead they might believe they don't need one. It'll eventually help them. They aren't the sole perpetrator of their practice, but are something to be considered and challenged.
How do you believe this affects the girl?
Well, I believe it's girls will when a girl is given a daughter, brushing her hair, dressing her up, things are getting done to her. This establishes the girl as something that must be performed on. There's something specific about the way a doll is portrayed. There are objects that require sexual manipulation and surveillance. As women are always the of the watch.
How does this establish a relationship between men and women?
Men have always existed as the center. Their existence and essence are one. They've created their entire meaning.
Don't you believe that women and girls do as well?
Girls exactly. In my book, I write, male anatomy constitutes a strong form of often and there under the girl. And literally, she no longer sees her own body. Because men receive approval from women's submission and other men, he can lose his sex organ freely and do the action, whereas women are the receiver. She begins to understand the world through the male gaze and becomes alienated from herself. she does have the choice to persevere and create her own essence as she wishes, but she becomes isolated from those who choose to conform. Just like men are told they have power, women trust, therefore men take the truth. Women are taught they watch, and therefore they feel like they must perform for the left the men. And boys will grow up who they want, and women who perform.
As I've stated, how men have free will, therefore they must own up to the consequences of their actions. Do you think that women must take on the consequences of believing in gender norms?
At the time I read this essay, yes. I believe that women should recognize they aren't simply victims of gender norms, but realize that they have the power to slow down this cycle. In the second sex, I stated that this starts in adolescence. Children are vulnerable to survival norms and start even thinking things like Santa or the Tooth Fairy to be true.
So why has gender norms, if they are made up, taken to be true even so many years later?
The majority of adults don't take Santa as true, but they do with gender. It's the same about religion and existentialism. Many believe existentialism remains true even with religion. While you believe existentialism remains true even with religion, there's still a lot of disconnects between determinism and free will. Existentialism requires. As an atheist, why do you believe that most people follow religions?
Well, they believe that without it, the world would have no morals, but existentialism proves that their morals come themselves. A lot of them were raised religiously and blindly follow up without genuinely reading scripture.
It is the same with girls and women. When you were raised according to this cycle, you take it as the truth because you're scared of denying it, denying something that everyone else follows. When I wanted people to recognize that they do have the authority to recognize this gaze, to reject this gaze. I explained this precisely as in the text. The less she exercises her freedom to understand, grasp, and discover the world around her, the less she will find its resources, and the less she will dare to affirm herself as a subject. They must reject everything they thought of as the truth for their whole lives. Over time, she stops recognizing these behaviors as a code, and instead, she experiences them as natural femininity. But there's no internal. As existentialists, we understand that human beings are always transcending what society makes of them. Yes, many people still live in that.
What do you mean by bad faith?
They deny their freedom by hiding behind rules, hiding behind rules. And in doing so, they reinforce the idea of the internal.
Sorry, you recently said that you wish that your writing was that of social constructivist. Do you still defend the existentialist reading of it?
Freedom never disappears completely. Even within its processes, individuals and unconscious beings capable of questioning these norms are put on. That's why feminism bothers existentially. It is not only about changing law and institutions, but about recognizing women as the ability to be will rather than take object.
Okay. I think this is a great place to end this episode. Thank you again for coming onto my podcast, World and Existentialism, and making sure to check out our other writings, Ethics of Ambiguity, and reread The Second Sex from an existentialist perspective. Thank you.